So, welcome back to day 2 of purposeful consistency. And what you all probably have learned about me so far, that I like to have grounding moments. So, that's what we're going to do because today has been a day for me. So, we're just going to do some breathing right now. So, join me as I put one hand on my chest and take a deep breath in and out. Deep breath in through my nose, out through my mouth. We're going to go one more time. Deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. So, welcome back to day 2 of the 100 days of purposeful consistency. And today, I really want to talk about discipline because discipline is a thing, but not the way that we think of, like discipline in children and putting you in timeout, because why would we be going into timeout? More so talking about discipline as in control. Not so much control, but not discipline as in punishment either, or not discipline as in thinking suffering, but discipline as far as like faith lens. I'm a very spiritual person, and I have been since a child. And when I'm saying spiritual, I'm not talking about within the religious connotation, because a lot of times when we're thinking about discipline, it sounds like restriction or like correction or shame, or somebody's watching you, or, this measured kind of thing, especially if you grew up in systems like schools and churches and workplaces where discipline was used to like enforce certain things like compliance rather than cultivating growth. So when a lot of times when we hear be disciplined, we often hear, or at least I know I hear, try harder, push through, ignore your body, ignore your spirit, ignore who you are, ignore what you're feeling. But that's not discipline. And it's someone who biblically I'm thinking about it's not biblical as well. And it's not sustainable either. Think about when you think about discipline, it's none of it is sustainable in the context of how we usually think about it. Because when we think about discipline that can disconnect you from yourself while eventually disconnecting you from that higher power, from that purpose, from your joy. And who wants to have that disconnect? Like, nobody wants to have that disconnect because you can't really be you. So, here, let's try to reframe th- how we look and how we feel about it. I know I'm trying that for me. And reframing discipline has changed a lot of things for me. So I'm not going to think about discipline as control. I'm going to think about discipline as alignment, about that path, about where I want to go. Does it align with my values? Does it align with my calling? Does it align with your capacity, like your season, where you're supposed to be at the moment? And when discipline is rooted in faith, It's not about forcing outcomes. And as people, I know at least me, you want to keep going and going and going because you think that this is the right thing that needs to be done. But what it's really about is ordering your life around what matters most. And sometimes that can be very hard because you're so used to doing things one way, and now you have to reconstruct your way that you've thought about things. You have to unlearn and relearn. And so in this season, I want you to think about discipline as not being a hustle, not exhaustion, not constant output, but the only way I can say this is like this: what has God entrusted me in this season? And how am I tending to it? Like a garden. Like, you have these seeds, you are planting them, you are sowing them. Like, how are you tending this garden to get the fruit that you want to be produced? So sometimes that looks like consistency, and sometimes that looks like restraint, and sometimes this looks like rest. We are tending the garden of who we are. And all of this can be done through disciplined choices. And here's the thing. I I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to others. And I know for me, this is where I get tripped up a lot because we're confusing obedience with the results. Um, and we think if I do this right, it should work. I know I do all the time. And like, if I'm faithful, I should see immediate fruit. Nah, you all, like, I planted broccoli during the time that they said to plant broccoli. But guess what? Nothing is producing in the manner that I thought it was because the seasons are all over the place. The weather is all over the place. But I have to be okay with that, but also be consistent and be disciplined in doing what I know I need to do to help produce that fruit. And if I'm consistent, we also think that the outcome should be visible. And right now, I would say for my broccoli, it is not visible. But it's also something that I'm learning because when we have faith in something, it doesn't always promise outcomes in our timeline. And I know for me, since I can remember, usually I am a huge procrastinator. And my mom, who is a psychologist, grew up like when growing up having plans A through Z, and then when those didn't work out, I had the small A's through Z, and then maybe Roman numerals, like all of those things. But I'm learning in this season, like, my plans aren't planning, and I have to be okay with it. I have to have faith that things are going to work out how they're how not how they're supposed to, but how they're going to, because faith asks for obedience without guarantees. So I can't have a guarantee that this is going to happen because I have to have faith in it. And so with this purposeful consistency, it is me saying I'm going to show up aligned even if I can't see the impact yet. And y'all, that is hard for me. That is exceptionally hard for me. It is very uncomfortable, especially me as being a high achiever. educators, leaders, and creatives who like are used to metrics and evaluations and proof. It's hard. But what I'm learning in this season is that obedience is also quiet and it's often unseen. And it looks like staying when it would be easier just to quit, or resting when it would be easier just to perform. And in this season of dealing with my parents that are in a different space, my father having dementia and my mother still recovering from having a stroke, like I have to be consistent. Like I really, really do. And even if there are things that are said to me and like it makes me feel a certain way, I have to keep going. But then I have to also rest so that I can be able to continue being consistent as well. So for me in this moment, again, if I'm thinking about being my parents' child and obedience and discipline, like for me right now, it does not look like doing everything. And this is something that I have to tell myself every single day when I wake up. Like I have to choose what not to do, and honoring what my limits are, and honoring what my body's limits are, and creating rhythms instead of rigid schedules, and being able to stop and walk away from certain things if it doesn't feel good to me, but then also showing up consistently without self betrayal. And all of those things are not easy to do. All of those things, I have to continuously remind myself of what it is that I need to do. And it can be uncomfortable, it can be hard, sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes you want to cry about it, and I do. So, one of these things, because this is what I'm choosing to do to be consistent, it looks like these 100-day series. Not because I feel energized every day, but because I feel aligned. And y'all, this is just day 2, and I didn't feel like showing up. Like some days I'll speak with fire, and some days I'll speak quietly, and some days I'll need more pauses, like today. But all of that, that's what discipline looks like, because the discipline is not me performing, it's the commitment to be in alignment with what it is I've set my goal to be. This matters deeply, especially for people like myself, educators and leaders, because if you don't know, so many of us were disciplined out of ourselves. We were taught to override with fatigue, to show up no matter what, to normalize overwork, to call depletion dedication. And then we wonder why we burn out, and why burnout, especially in the field of education, is so widespread. Like, again, for me, if I'm thinking about faith centered discipline, it invites us to ask different questions. And the questions that it's asking for us is, what is mine to carry? What is not? And what rhythms sustain me? And what what does obedience look like without self-harm? If more leaders would model this kind of discipline, they would actually give permission to others to do the same. And that's transformative. We need transformative leadership. So, the reflective piece for today that I'm leaving you with is, where in your life have you confused discipline with punishment? And what shift, if you could reimagine discipline as alignment instead, what would you release? What would you reorder? What would you protect? I just want to thank you for continuing this journey with me. And I want you to sit with those questions, like gently, without judgment. Um, and as the kids say, like and subscribe and share with someone who you think needs a softer definition of discipline. Okay. This is day 2, and you are allowed to grow at a human pace. And I'll see you next time. Deuces.